All right, joining us here in New York with a look at Axios AM political reporter for Axios, Alexi McCammon. Great to have you on set, Alexi. Good to see you. Talk to us about Axios as one big thing today.
Earlier this week, I was in South Carolina for this big centrist Democratic conference about how Democrats can win the 2020 election. And the big takeaway from that was that these moderate Democrats are so spooked by Bernie Sanders becoming the nominee. They constantly were talking about economic messages that can't focus on free stuff like free college. And they were totally rebuking the idea of Medicare for all and talking about working with Republicans. So they're really nervous looking at the polls as Bernie Sanders is in second place consistently, that he will be the nominee and he'll essentially sort of end all the things that they care about and not be able to beat Donald Trump.
And Alexi, you have some reporting about how Elizabeth Warren, who's so often seen as the closest candidate ideologically to Bernie Sanders, that she gets a pass with these moderates. Why is that?
That was one of the curious things throughout this conference. So it was hosted by Third Way, as I mentioned, and I think in 2013 or 2014, they had a pretty public feud with Elizabeth Warren, and by all accounts, Elizabeth Warren sort of won and shut them down. But when I was talking to these folks at this conference, although Elizabeth and Bernie Sanders are pretty close ideologically, they were sort of saying that her message is more of a democratic capitalist message, whereas they think that Bernie Sanders is just a full-blown socialist. So they view Elizabeth Warren as someone who is generally moving in the same direction as they are and as the larger Democratic Party is, but they think Bernie Sanders is someone who is sort of blowing things up for them.
Are they using her conservative past, the fact that she actually used to be a Republican, are they using that in the calculus at all? Does anybody mention that or talk about that?
Right, that's a really good point, and it's surprising that they haven't mentioned that, but they sort of just use her as a contrast to Bernie Sanders, again, because they think that Bernie Sanders is so bad for the party that they will give someone like Elizabeth Warren a pass.
And Axios, Alexi, also has some exclusive new reporting, I'm told, and it looks at how President Trump has deported fewer immigrants than compared to President Obama in his early years. Again,